Hello, my friends. Today we'll start right away with the Kharkiv region, specifically the area around Veliki Burluk. Mandatory evacuation has been announced for 40 settlements at once. This is a direct sign that the Russians are gradually advancing here and increasing the activity. As a result, more and more towns and villages are coming under threat. Unfortunately, that means the Russians are making gains and continue to capture settlements. Now, people from 40 different locations will have to be evacuated. Residents are forced to leave their homes, their jobs, and go somewhere unknown. That's why even small Russian advances, just about a few kilometers, are significant because even after such minor movements, we soon see evacuations from new settlements. Meanwhile, the Russians continue to push forward, attacking Kolodezne, Dvorichanske, and Bolohivka. There haven't been any new changes along the front line yet, but the situation remains difficult. In the Dvorichna direction, attacks on Kutkivka are still ongoing, and there are no changes along the front line there either. And in the Kupiansk direction, since almost half of Kupiansk has already fallen under the Russian control, evacuation of the frontline settlements has also begun. These villages are being evacuated because the front line keeps moving closer and closer. Unfortunately, the situation here continues to deteriorate. Fighting in the city hasn't stopped, and conditions there are extremely difficult. The Russians are advancing, and they have enough reserves to launch additional assaults on Petropavlivka and are breaking through toward Kurilivka. At the same time, there is a heavy amount of shelling continuing in this area. In the Borova direction, things are relatively calm for now. The Russians haven't launched new assaults, and the loss of Borivska and Andreevka hasn't been confirmed. And in the Lyman direction, the situation today is very difficult. Yesterday, it was confirmed that the Russians broke through closer to Lyman. It was also confirmed that they captured the village of Seredny. Today, they are actively trying to push across the fields toward Lyman, and they are also storming Drobisheva. Fighting is already taking place inside the village. In addition, attacks continue on Novoselivka in the Shandrogolova area, and they are also assaulting Karpivka. And the situation here is extremely tough, and so far it hasn't been possible to stop the advance. In the Siversk direction, the situation is also tense. The Russians continue to attack Yampil, and despite Syrsky's statement that the village had been cleared of the Russians and is under Ukrainian control, the Russians managed to turn the things around and are holding part of the village. They're also pushing toward Siversk and carrying out a large number of shelling attacks. For now, there haven't been any new changes today, but the fighting continues. In the Kostantynivka direction, the Russians are trying to break through the defenses from two sides and get closer to Kostantynivka. They are advancing in the area of Stupochki and Pretechene and pushing straight along the highway toward the outskirts of Kostantynivka. They're also breaking through in the area of Alexandru Shultine, Sultan Berestok, and Mykolaipille. The gray zone here is definitely expanding, but the Ukrainian forces aren't allowing them to secure new positions yet, so the fighting continues. In the Dobropillia direction, the Ukrainian forces recorded some successes in recent days, but they haven't yet managed to completely cut off this access. And the Russians continue to attack Volodymyrivka. There have been no changes along the front line over the past day, and activity has slightly decreased for now. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians are assaulting Rodinske, Krasny Liman, and Novoekonomichne, breaking through near Myrolubivka and attacking Moskovske and the outskirts of Mirnograd. The Russians have claimed to have captured Moskovske and the nearby settlements of Balagan, but the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed this information. So for now, the front line here remains unchanged. In addition, the Russians are attacking Chunishine, the outskirts of Pokrovsk, Molodetske, and pushing through near Udachne, Kotlane, and Zvirove. However, there have been no changes over the past day, and the fighting continues. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians are pushing across the fields toward the outskirts of the city. They're also advancing across the fields toward Filia and assaulting Dachne, Ivanivka, and Alexandrograd. So far, there have been no new changes over the past day, but activity here is high and the situation remains difficult. In the direction of the village of Pokrovsk in the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians are attacking Sosnivka, pushing across the fields toward the village of Oleksiyivka. Fighting is ongoing for Novogregorivka. Part of the village is already under Russian control, while the other part remains under the control of the Ukrainian forces. So the battle here continues, and the front line hasn't changed over the past day. In the Huliaipole direction, the Russians haven't launched any new assaults, only shelling has been recorded. The front line remains unchanged over the past day. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are pushing through near Stepove, where the Ukrainian forces managed to push them back a few days ago. Near Stepnohirsk, no new assaults have been recorded for now, and the front line remains unchanged today. In the Kherson direction, the Russians continue attacking near the Antonivsky bridge. Shelling of the right bank hasn't stopped, and the situation remains tense, although the front line here also hasn't changed. Now let's move on to the situation along the border. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians haven't launched any new assaults, and the situation remains stable. In Vovchansk, fighting continues, but the front line hasn't changed over the past day. In the Sumy direction, the Russians are pushing through near Kindrativka, Andriivka, Oleksiyivka, and Yunakivka. However, they've had no success, and the front line hasn't changed over the past day. Meanwhile, Trump said that Zelensky would come to the US, and most likely there will be a discussion about Tomahawks.
And I know what he has to say. He wants weapons. He would like to have Tomahawks. Everyone else wants Tomahawks. And we have a lot of Tomahawks. Tomahawk is a. Do you need any Tomahawks in Argentina?
He also, once again, said that he's disappointed in Putin.
Meeting going on. Look, I'm very disappointed because Vladimir and I had a very good relationship. Probably still do. I don't know why he continues with this war. This war has been so bad for him. He's going into 4 years of a war that should have beaten. He should have won that war in 1 week. He's now soon be into his 4th year. He's lost 1.5 million soldiers, probably close. certainly in terms of wounded and no legs and no arms and all of the things that happen in horrible wars. It's a horrible war. It's the biggest thing that's happened since World War II in terms of death.
As we can see, Trump has already realized that if Russia were truly strong, it would have won long ago. Instead, the war has been dragging on for 4 years and has effectively reached a stalemate. Moreover, strikes on Russia are increasing, and the situation inside the country is generally deteriorating. So, despite the problems on the front line, Russia's situation is not improving in any case. Uh, and that's all from me. So, please, as usual, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all of the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.